Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2014 Camden County Presiding Commissioner Forum. My name is Doug Olson, and I'm the publisher of the Lake Sun and Lake Media. We're proud to be partnering with Trish Creech and the team at the Camden Chamber to produce this evening's event. The upcoming election is critical for Camden County's future, so we appreciate your attendance this evening, and we ask that you exercise your right to vote on August 5th. I'd like to thank Mr. Franken and Mr. Hasty for their willingness to participate in this evening's session. I'd also like to thank Dr. Hatfield and the Camden School District for providing the venue for this program. Finally, I'd like to introduce our moderator for this evening, Sam Fleury. Sam has served as Senior Community and Alumni Relations Coordinator for Columbia College, Lake of the Ozarks for the past 4.5 years. Sam has worked in higher education for more than 14 years, specializing in all facets of media, client, public, and alumni relations. Sam's a 2000 graduate of the University of Nebraska at Kearney with a degree in communication and a minor in administration. He's a member of the Camden Chamber of Commerce and also an alumni of the Leadership Camden County Class 17. Sam, it's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug, for that introduction, and good evening. I'd like to echo Doug's sentiments. Thank you for being here tonight. This should be a very lively and productive talk and candidate forum. A couple ground rules. These will take no longer than an hour, no less than 2. Candidates will each give in 3 minutes for opening and closing comments. We have 10 pertinent questions for each candidate, and the candidate will have 3 minutes to respond to the presented question. Prior to the event this evening, we flipped a coin to see which candidate would begin, and then we will alternate responses for each subsequent question. I believe Mr. Franken will go first tonight. We have a timekeeper located at the corner of the stage, right here in the front, down in front. Once the questions are posed and response begins, you will have 3 minutes to complete your response. We will hold a sign for the 1 minute left, and for 30 seconds left, and then for timeout. Candidates, please be aware of your time and keep a close eye on the timekeeper, please. This is not a pep rally. Again, this is not a pep rally or a campaign support for a particular candidate. We ask that everyone is respectful of each candidate and listen as they express their ideas. The forum is designed to give residents and business community the opportunity to become more informed and meet the candidate to hear their position on various topics. With us this evening, we had the following candidates seeking to fill the presiding commissioner's role on the Camden County Commission. First of all, Mr. Chris Franken, and second of all, Mr. Greg Hasty. With that, let's get started, and before we get started, I would like to make sure that everyone's cell phones are on vibrate. Check your phones, turn them off. Vibrate, please. And first of all, we will have opening comments. First of all, after the coin flip, we're going to start with Mr. Franken for the opening comments.
Very good, thank you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on myself. My name is Chris Franken. I have served you since 2011 as a Camden County Presiding Commissioner. I've been a Lake resident for 20 years, came here in 1994, and I've owned multiple businesses during that time. My educational background is I have an engineering degree from the University of Missouri at Rolla, now Missouri S&T, in metallurgical engineering. When I graduated from the University of Missouri at Rolla, I went to work for the United States Bureau of Mines, which was at that time a part of the Department of Interior doing environmental remediation research. Worked there for 7 years. Then in Newt Gingrich's contract with America, that particular bureau was closed and no longer exists under the Department of Interior. And that's when I came to the lake. While I worked for the Bureau of Mines and worked on research, I also did environmental remediation and also did some extractive metallurgy research, and I was published in the field of extractive metallurgy during that period. Since I've come to the lake, I've owned a nightclub for about 7 and operated it for about 7 years. And I've also had a construction company the entire time.
I am state certified in septic and have been since it was required in 1998. And I also have built sewer plants and am well versed in wastewater, construction, and all aspects of those items. When I took over on January the 1st of 2011 as your presiding commissioner, Camden County was in the second worst financial position in 25 years. When we closed the books at the end of last year, December 31st of 2013, we were in the best financial position in the history of the county. Not only were we in the best financial position, but we had also managed to complete a host of projects that had been decades old that were needing to be done at the courthouse. Maintenance issues like the elevator, a new generator, upgrades to, we had to tuck point the old courthouse, new flashing. All those projects, we paid cash for those projects, in addition to bringing our bank balances in line with where we needed them to be. And we improved the quality of the roads out in the county. We still have a lot of work to do, and we're going to continue to do those things. And also, while we did that, we were able to move the county's credit rating from a AA minus to a AA. And there's very few political subdivisions in the nation that can say that they have been able to accomplish that in such a short period of time. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Franken. And now we'll go over to Mr. Hasty. Mr. Hasty, please make your opening comments.
Good evening. Thanks for being here this evening, and thanks to the Chamber and the Lake Sun for putting this on. While many of you in this room know me, for those that don't, I'm Greg Hasty, and I'm running for presiding commissioner because I've had enough of incompetent government damaging the lives, businesses, and property values of the citizens of this county. My friends tell me that I'm too serious and that I need to smile and be joyful tonight. That's hard to do when you see what's taking place with our citizens at the hands of our own government. The evening, my opponent's going to give you a big song and dance about all the things that he's done in the last 3.5 years, when the facts are he's done virtually nothing for the citizens of Camden County. The truth is that the biggest problem we've had in Camden County over the last several years is overreach of government and incompetent government. And I'm just going to give you a few examples of this. The 2011 FEMA maps signed off on by my opponent place homes in flood zones that have never flooded and never will. The 2011-2012 FERC fiasco. People still don't have marketable title to their property. Camden County Planning and Zoning. Well, all you have to do is say that. It's on the front page of the paper practically every day. The Key Largo interchange. One of the biggest mistakes in Camden County history. And while that's a giant mistake, my opponent at the Council of Local Governments recently placed this at the bottom of their list of proposed road improvements. Apparently, he doesn't understand the devastating effect of this on our economy. We need to be down there at that place shopping and helping those people. It's my goal as your next presiding commissioner to lead the fight to fix these problems. I have 40 years of land development experience at the Lake of the Ozarks. I've been in business as a professional surveyor for over 30 years at the lake. I've been a licensed real estate broker for over 20. I'm past president of the Lake of the Ozarks West Chamber of Commerce, and I've been on the City of Camden Planning and Zoning Board for 10 years. I have a proven track record of getting things done, and I'm asking you for your vote to make our county government work for us. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hasty. We will move on to the first question of the evening, which will also go to Mr. Hasty. Mr. Hasty, what role do you see Camden County government playing in the marketing and promotion of Lake of the Ozarks as a vacation and retirement destination?
Actually, I don't know that we need to think about it marketing it as a vacation and retirement destination. It's my goal as presiding commissioner to seek a new vision that includes that, but at the same time utilizes everything we have in this county, including our railroad in the southeast corner of the county. There is so much more that we could do if we seen a big vision for this county instead of just thinking small and being divisive between communities and each other. We need to work as a whole with every part of our county because we have to compete against the entire world for jobs. I want us to have a diversified economy, and that's what I want to work toward.
Mr. Franken, I will repeat the question for you.
Thank you.
What role do you see Camden County government playing in the marketing and promotion of the Lake of the Ozarks as a vacation and retirement destination?
Well, with regard to primarily the retirement destination, currently, if you check the tax rolls of Camden County, you will find that 68% of the taxes that are paid in Camden County are paid by people who don't live here. Those people are supporting your schools, they're supporting your fire departments, your sheriff's departments, your ambulances, your Senate Bill 40 board, which takes care of our elderly, takes care of our mentally challenged citizenry, our senior citizen board, which takes care of our elderly, and also our library board. All those things generate the tax revenue necessary to move that forward. One of the primary things that people are looking for when they come to invest those dollars at Camden County is the ability to know that their investment that they've made here is going to be respected and protected by the people that are in charge. And that is a primary duty of what we need to do to make sure that people continue to be confident in investing the dollars that they've seen to invest here in the county over the past several years. Those investments, without those investments, and we're not just talking about homes, we're talking about, if you look through the rolls, you'll find there's farms that are, a lot of farmland that is being used for cattle, for agriculture. That stuff's owned by people that don't live in the area. You're talking about personal property, the large boats, and all the other things that people are buying and using at Lake of the Ozarks. And it's not just the big boats, it's the little ones too. It's the jet skis, it's the big picture. And that's what generates the base of our revenue. And also the people coming into our area to generate our revenue. Our revenue is really predominantly a sales tax-based revenue. We generate very little of our income. Basically, somewhere in the neighborhood of less than 10 or a little over 10% of our income comes from property tax for county operations. The rest comes from sales tax. So we need to make sure that that those people are invested in the community, continue to come to our community, and spend money and improve their properties and see how our way of life works down here so that they want to retire and be a part of this way of life as they move through their journey and realize the value of our quality here at the lake.
Okay. Thank you very much for your responses, gentlemen. We will move on to question 2, and we'll start with you, Mr. Franken. You both have made statements that you want to reinstate new road acceptance. Why do you feel that is the direction that the county needs to take? How is this economically feasible? And wouldn't that result in a need to raise county levy?
Well, first of all, we need to be careful how we do that. And if we do move forward with accepting new roads, we want to make sure that it's not a free-for-all. We don't want to accept roads that are not up to county standard, that don't have appropriate right-of-way, that don't have the things that they need to have. One of the reasons that I want to do it, first of all, one other thing I want to get out of the way right up front is that we do need to do additional road maintenance. Road maintenance is always on the list. And I also want to see us move forward with new programs to try to pave some of our gravel roads. And now that the financial train is back on the track, I think we can start looking at some of those if I'm elected to a second term. But with regard to accepting roads, when you look at some of the things that come through planning and zoning on new subdivisions, a lot of developers want to ask for variances to the paving of the subdivision roads in order to keep the costs down. And part of that reason, in my opinion, is because they know that there's been a moratorium on the acceptance of those roads, so there's no chance of those roads being accepted by the county for maintenance. So my proposal for how we do that is pretty basic. Number one, if you want the county to take over your road, here's the things you need to do. We need a minimum of 40 foot of dedicated right-of-way over that roadway. Number two, that roadway needs to have at least 22 feet of driving surface on it. Number three, when the county takes the road over, it has to be hard surfaced, and it will have to have appropriate armored drainage structures. That means ditches with riprap in it, or it has to have curb and gutter, whatever the discretion of the developer or the neighborhood who's seeking to have their road taken over by the county wants to do. And third, there needs to be some type of participation by the community if the road doesn't meet those standards to bring that to standard upon acceptance. So that way we know that we're going to be accepting roads that meet county standard. But the thing that it also does is on our newer developments, as people come in, it entices that developer to do the right thing, to build that street the way it needs to be built, to the specifications that it needs to be built to. And then those streets are in a position where they will hopefully, if they are built to our standards, they should be a 20-year structure that won't require any substantial maintenance until further down the road, and will also increase property values and marketability of the properties located around it.
Thank you, Mr. Franken. Mr. Hasty, we will now direct the question to you, and I'll read it again. You both have made statements that you want to reinstate new road acceptance. Why do you feel that is the direction the county needs to take? How is that economically feasible? And would that result in the need to raise the county levy?
I think that the county needs to have a specific set of standards, written standards for roads throughout. In order for the county to take over a roadway, it needs to meet those county standards. But the reality is, in this economy that we have today, and when you get into some of these outlying areas, you've got a situation here where if you build a roadway, I'm just going to relate this as to the Old West. I mean, if you had to have curb and gutter all the way to the Old West, no one would have ever went there. The truth of the matter is, whenever Horseshoe Bend was developed, all of those roads out there were not gravel roads; they were dirt. So, what led to the growth of the economy out there was the construction of multi-million-dollar homes. Once those homes were in place, there was a tax base there so that you could have paved roads and premier schools. Outlying areas like Climax Springs and Max Creek, Stoutland, Richland, in order for them to be able to grow, you have to have the opportunity for developments to come in there, and then as the tax base grows, there's going to be room to pave the roads. I agree, the roads need to have a specific standard before they are taken over by the county and become a permanent responsibility of the county. But in order to have growth take place, you have to have a provision so that people who want to do a development with a gravel road can do that development with the understanding that they know in order for the county to take this road, it will have to meet these standards. It was done on Horseshoe Bend a long time ago, and now they have, School of the Osage has premier schools and premier roads. I would like for Max Creek, Climax Springs, Richland, Stoutland, those areas to have the same opportunity. We just have to make sure that the structure is in there for that to occur so that our county has an opportunity to grow. With the subdivision requirements that we have in the Planning and Zoning Code right now, the only way that you can do this is through conditional use permits or variances, and quite frankly, the variances are so often and so frequent in this county, it creates a perfect environment for people to pick and choose who gets to have a subdivision and who doesn't get to have a subdivision. With our lending standards today, when you combine the lending standards with the requirements of that code, you've effectively shut down a lot of the rural areas of this county from any development.
Thank you, Mr. Hasty. Moving on to question 3, and we'll go back to you, Mr. Hasty. What infrastructure or incentives does Camden County provide to encourage industrial or manufacturing companies to locate in Camden County?
Would you repeat the question,
Absolutely.
please?
What infrastructure or incentives does Camden County provide to encourage industrial or manufacturing companies to locate in Camden County?
Right now, I would say very little.
Final answer?
Yep.
Okay. Moving on to Mr. Franken. What infrastructure or incentive does Camden County provide to encourage industrial or manufacturing companies to locate in Camden County?
Currently, there are none, and that is an issue, and that's something that I have tried to work on with little support, I might add. One of the main things that you need to understand right off the bat with regards to economic development, especially with regards to industrial or manufacturing type jobs, when state of Missouri is looked at, there is a 75% pass-fail on right to work. What that means is companies say, we're looking to locate something in the Midwest. If they don't have right to work, we're not going to look at them. So that's 75% of the opportunities that are out there are gone right off the bat. Of the remaining 25%, 12% of those have a very strong standard with regards to right to work. So right out of the gate, 87% of the opportunities that could come to Missouri as a whole state are gone, simply because the legislature hasn't been able to move forward with right to work. The second piece of that puzzle is the incentive package. You may not like incentives. Talk to anybody in economic development. Talk to the Missouri State Department of Economic Development. It's the first thing the company wants to know. What can you do for me based on the jobs I'm going to bring to your community? The only way that you can do that effectively and quickly, because of the responses that are required, is through an economic enterprise zone. We tried to establish an economic enterprise zone. The map was drawn and approved by DED. There's been some comments made regarding the fact that the economic enterprise zone map doesn't meet the plan and zoning master plan map. Well, that's because DED doesn't really care what our master plan map looks like, and it was drawn before the EEZ map was. So if we adopt our EEZ map, then we probably need to work on our master plan map. And that's just kind of a chicken-egg issue that we need to deal with. Until we can get an EEZ established to be able to move forward to do that, we're not going to be able to place any incentives in front of these companies, and these companies expect you to respond in usually less than 10 days with what your incentive package is going to be. The third thing is the last 5 potential opportunities that I have seen are calling for existing inventory of buildings. All the buildings that I have seen that people want have a minimum sidewall height of 30 feet. We don't have any inventory like that in Camden County anywhere that meets the standards that they're requiring. So when you look at right to work, the lack of an economic enterprise zone to provide an incentive base, no inventory in buildings, and also the fact that we have not been able to take steps because we don't have there's no reason to move forward with a certified workforce program that the state of Missouri has instituted without the EEZ because they walk hand in hand. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Franken. We will move on to question number 4, and we will go back to Mr. Franken. How do you, as a candidate, view political action committees organized to support and or oppose local candidates? And do they serve a purpose on the county level?
Well, as far as I know, this is the first time I'm aware that there was a PAC on a local level. And I guess my main thing that I would say regarding it is that at least you know who's doing what. The PAC is transparent. They are filed with the Missouri Ethics Commission. They have to disclose contributions. They have to disclose any money they spend and where they spend it. They have to disclose where that money came from. Unlike anonymous websites that have circulated in our community over the last, I'm going to say, 4 to 6 years, where people hide behind the internet, spend money to host those things, and don't disclose who they are. And so, in my opinion, if you want to be involved in the political process, that's the way that needs to occur. No different than a candidate has to disclose, or at least should disclose, by law they have to, the sources of their income and where their expenses go. So, I don't always agree with everything everybody does, but I'm respectful of the process, and anybody that is willing to move forward in that process and follow the rules, whether they're for me or against me, I think it's good that they're involved.
Thank you, Mr. Franken. Repeat the question, Mr. Hasty. How do you, as a candidate, view political action committees organized to support and/or oppose local candidates, and do they serve a purpose at the county level?
Well, to be honest with you, I never thought that I would be in this position of running for office, but that being what it is, I am amazed that a political action committee has been formed for apparently the primary purpose of defeating me. None of these people have ever asked me any of my views. None of them have ever sat down and talked to me. They have their political views that they hold, but they've never disclosed what they are. My views are pretty plain. I've made them pretty clear. Also, with regard to disclosure, I published my report, and I described everyone that supported me. And in my next report coming up, there's going to be some other people supporting me. And one of those will be the guy that I worked for 25 years doing land development, Herbert Half. And the other one will be the Lake of the Ozarks Board of the Realtors and the Missouri Board of Realtors, who just endorsed me. So political action committees, they're just part of our society and what we uphold, whether our rights. And each action committee has a stated purpose, and I'm thankful for the support of the Board of the Realtors and a man that I regard as my second father.
Thank you, Mr. Hasty. We will move on to question number 5, and this will go back to you, Mr. Hasty. What is your position on the proposed transportation sales tax, and what is your plan or vision for the infrastructure improvements that are needed in Camden County over the next 4 years if the sales tax passes?
Simple statement. If the sales tax passes, and I'll be honest with you, we need roads in this county. Our state is behind on infrastructure, and if we don't do something soon, we're going to be really in desperate shape. I'm just telling you I'm for it. And I'm also telling you this much. The most important thing that we need to do if that sales tax passes before anything else occurs is to fix the debacle at the Key Largo intersection. Not only is this killing people, but it's caused unbelievable destruction to our entire Lake of the Ozarks economy. Drive down there and look and see what's going on. I was down there this Sunday at 9 o'clock and drove through there for 2.5 miles. And what did I see? Counting my car, I only seen 6 cars on the entire stretch of that way that used to have thousands of cars running through it. Lots of people all over the lake count on Osage Beach, and we've just destroyed a big part of that economy. We have to do everything we can as a county and a group of citizens to support them and really go after MoDOT. This needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed now.
Thank you, Mr. Hasty. We'll now go over to Mr. Franken with the same question. What is your position on the proposed transportation sales tax, and what is your plan or vision for infrastructure improvements that are needed in Camden County over the next 4 years if the sales tax passes?
Well, I do sit on the Transportation Advisory Commission for Camden County, which is a direct conduit to MoDOT for projects and for prioritizations. And we were involved, deeply involved in a lot of meetings. It was a rush job to get a list prioritized to MoDOT for the projects. It is correct. We do need to do something about infrastructure here in the county. I'm not happy with the project list the way it came out. Camden County and the Lake of the Ozarks Council Local Governments region as a whole did not fare as well as I would have liked for us to. The bulk of the dollars are going to be cemented in I-70, Route 63, and Route 50. And so while those are important routes to the lake, would have liked to have seen some additional larger projects in our area. One of the things that needs to be noted is 5% of those funds that are generated by that sales tax are going to come to the county. In round dollars, that's going to be somewhere around $450,000 worth of extra money Camden County is going to have in its coffers for road and bridge at their discretion. And they can use those on the road and bridge projects that they want to. So that's an extra $4.5 million to do that work over the 10-year life of that tax. So when you're evaluating your vote based on that 3/4 cent sales tax, and don't just look at those projects, keep in mind that whoever is working in the commission office is going to have some additional funds at their disposal to move forward in paving roads, building bridges, and doing the things that need to be done. I want to address the Key Largo issue. The reason the Key Largo issue wasn't on the list is because the city of Osage Beach is engaging with MoDOT in the cost share program in order to fix that and get an outer road put in to try to create some connectivity and fix that issue. MoDOT has suspended that cost share program while this 3/4 cent sales tax is on the table. Now, I'm not really sure why they did that, but I think it's probably to try to encourage people to vote for the sales tax. But that is the fact of the matter with regard to Key Largo. It was not thrown at the bottom of a list. It wasn't ignored. Further, it's a city issue. That interchange is located within the city limits of Osage Beach and is not within the jurisdiction of Camden County. And while we have been supportive at the county level, I've come to the hearings and done what I needed to do at the request of Mayor Lyons and other people that are in leadership in Osage Beach. It's still a process that we have to work through, and we have to work with them and MoDOT, and ultimately Osage Beach needs to be at the helm, driving the ship that gets that project fixed and makes it safer and does the things that it needs to do. Once we get past the sales tax, we've been told that the cost share program will be reinstituted, and we'll be able to move forward then with that mode to fix that issue. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Franken. We will move on to question number 6, and then I'll go back to you, Mr. Franken. What is the single largest challenge facing Camden County, and how do you intend to remedy it?
Now that's a good one. The single largest challenge is really good management of money against what our liabilities are. The primary duty in the commission is to figure out how we're going to spend the dollars that we get. And a lot of the things that we have to do, that we're obligated to do by the state and the federal government, are things that the general populace doesn't see. We've had compliance issues with different things they were in place, these compliance issues, when I came in. One of the things is we were sorely behind on our E911 system. And we've saved the money. We're writing the check. We're upgrading to Phase 2 911 right now. Upgrade's going on right now. But guess what? The fact that we didn't have it got us sued. We lost a lawsuit over that because we couldn't respond because we couldn't figure out and triangulate a signal to a cell phone. That's something we're fixing. That is you've got to fix those liabilities first. We have issues in our jail with our control system, with how our control system talks to our fire alarm and talks to our camera system. It's not critical at this point, but now's the time to get it fixed before it gets us in the same situation that the E911 system got us into. Those two projects together, you're talking a little over $1 million to bring us back into compliance. But those are the things that we need to do before we move forward with some of the additional improvements like paving gravel roads, which are still very high on my list. But, it's kind of like the Navy used to say in World War II. When somebody attacks your ship, you got to fix your ship before you go after them. Well, in this particular situation, we need to fix our liability issues first because that's what's going to come back to bite us. And then we can move forward with the things that help us from an infrastructure standpoint. And we're trying to do a little bit of that all at the same time. And we're having some success with that. Our gravel roads are far better today than they were when I took office. That doesn't mean they don't need work. There's years of neglect and years of wear and things that are out there that need to be dealt with. And it didn't get that way in 3 years, and you can't fix it all in 3 years, but we sure are moving that direction. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Franken. And we'll go over to Mr. Hasty, and I'll repeat the question. What is the single largest challenge facing Camden County, and how do you intend to remedy it?
There's no question about it that the single largest problem that we've had in Camden County over the last 10 years is incompetent and stupid government mistakes. The first thing that we need to do is start looking at these things and stop making these foolish mistakes. The list just goes on and on. I mean, Key Largo is just one of an entire string of things that have taken place where no one was watching what was going on until it was too late. I mean, this FERC fiasco, the IMZs in 2006, if we could just get government out of the way, this economy would recover. You know, so I think we need to, I'll be honest with you, I'm running for office specifically for the purpose because my experience and knowledge of 40 years here at the Lake of the Ozarks in land development gives me, and as a real estate broker, gives me perfect insight into the things that will help us and the things that will hurt us. And I'm just, the reason I'm running for office is because I'm frustrated with what's taking place and how it's hurting our businesses, our lives, and our communities.
Thank you, Mr. Hasty. And we'll move on to question number 7, and this will go back to you, Mr. Hasty. How have tax increment financing projects affected sales and property tax revenues for Camden County?
Well, obviously, there's been a few of these things adopted. I'll be honest with you, with regard to TIFs, I have concerns about them, and let me just get to that just a minute here. I want to look at my notes. Surely it's on one of these pages. Well, let me just say this. I'll just put the notes aside. The state of California has quit doing TIFs because of the situations that have taken place with regard to a couple of lawsuits in state of California, and the things that have taken place there have actually led to the collapse of the entire system. While I think that we need to have TIFs as a tool in our toolbox to promote growth and development, I think it needs to be used very, very carefully. I don't think that we need to be going in and doing TIFs in areas where it's going to compete with it against an existing business that's already here. That's just a slap in the face to those people. And if we end up with the same type of troubles and lawsuits that the state of California's had, we could end up with a situation where our government is in a very strained financial position. So with regard to TIFs, I'm not against them. They need to be looked at very carefully by people who care about this county. And I don't believe that we should have a TIF in this county unless it's a game changer for that region and a game changer for the Lake of the Ozarks. You know, if it's one of those things, fine. But if it's something that's just going to compete against an existing business, boy, we really need to think that over carefully.
Thank you, Mr. Hasty. And we'll go to you, Mr. Franken. Same question. How do you have tax increment financing projects affected sales and property tax revenues for Camden County?
Well, just a little quick TIF 101. Essentially what happens on a TIF, for anybody who doesn't know, is that 50% of the what they do is they take the property tax valuation prior to the development and then post-development, take the difference, and 50% of that goes to a reimbursement pool for the project. And then they do the same thing on the sales tax. They take 50% of the sales tax and it goes to a reimbursement pool. Currently, the TIFs, the Osage Beach policy is the one that I have forward in my head, and the Sunrise Beach policy is very similar. But they normally cap the reimbursement at 15% of the total project. So there is a 23-year life on a TIF, but they also have a stopgap, and when they get to a certain amount of money, the TIF ends also. Here's the thing about a TIF. That is the only way we have to offer incentives in Camden County right now because it's the only tool in the toolbox. The only way you get away from that is to get more tools in the toolbox, or you just say you don't want the development. And it really is that simple, because in order to qualify for a TIF, you have to do what's called a but-for statement. And that statement says this: but for TIF, I will not build this in this area. And that is a legally binding statement. So once that business or that opportunity makes that statement, if you don't do the TIF, then you're not going to get that particular development. Now, I'm not saying you let those people hold you hostage because they made that statement. I'm just saying that is how it works. So with regard to that, one of the things that got the state of California in trouble is they were tiffing residential projects. And that's a no-no, because when you tiff, let's think about how our school districts get their money. It's pretty much all from property tax. When you start tiffing residential projects and taking 50% of the school money away from a development that's generating kids for the school, you're creating an issue. One of the things that we've seen in this county, and I will say that all of the TIFs that we have are municipalities, none of them are located in the unincorporated county, so the county just participates on that board in a very minimal way. We have 2 votes out of 11 votes on that board. But the TIF policies that are in place pretty much will only consider commercial developments for that because they understand the danger in tiffing residential projects. That way, they get in a position with the TIF on a commercial basis where those individuals that move in to go to work for that commercial establishment buy that residential house that is taxed at full rate and still generate the necessary tax base to support our infrastructure of our schools, fire, ambulance, all the things that I mentioned in my opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Franken. We will move on to question number 8, a very much related question. How would you increase revenue for infrastructure projects without tax increases, Mr. Franken?
Raising infrastructure dollars without raising taxes is unfortunately very difficult to do. One of the things that I have found, a method that I found we can move some things forward minimally, is through the Council of Local Governments, which the Council of Local Governments is a 4-county council through which all grant money, for the most part, is funneled. And I have worked very hard in my last 3 years to earn the respects of my peers, and I am the chairman of that 4-county board. And that's important to me because it tells me that I'm doing a good enough job that 3 other presiding commissioners think that I need to sit on the chairmanship of that committee. But one of the things, the opportunities that have arisen through the Department of Natural Resources are feasibility studies for our existing sewer districts. Through the Council of Governments, applying to the Department of Natural Resources, I obtained 2 grants, one for $41,000 for the Normac district, one for $113,800 for the Camelot district. No strings attached money. Free money to do a feasibility study to create construction-ready documents to extend the collection systems for those 2 plants. Those plants already had the treatment capacity necessary to handle everything that's going to be assessed during that feasibility study. So there's a way that we infused roughly just south, or just north rather, of $150,000 that will improve our infrastructure situation that didn't cost the tax dollars any money whatsoever. From there, you really start to get into communities making decisions about what they want to do. Because if you don't do something countywide, and anytime you try to do something countywide, it's difficult, and I'm not even saying that I'm going to advocate for that. I'm an advocate for whatever the people tell me they want. If they tell me that, bring me a petition and say that they want to try to do a countywide infrastructure tax, that's one thing. But we see more of our pockets of people that want to improve a road, pave a road, and they want to do through what's called a neighborhood improvement district. And I've done several feasibilities on those since I've been in office, but unfortunately they don't pencil out because of the current high cost of asphalt. And so we're working to try to move forward with new ways to try to accomplish their projects within the budget that they're going to have based on the assessed valuations of those districts. So some people would say, well, that isn't a tax because the people are voting to do it to themselves, but I personally still put that under a tax because it shows up on your property tax statement. You're obliged to pay that. So those are some options that we have. Those tax-free options are limited, but I'm exploiting them every chance that we get an opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Franken. And we'll go to you, Mr. Hasty. How would you increase revenue for infrastructure projects without tax increases?
Well, I think rather than talk about increasing revenue for infrastructure, we need to think about maybe taking a step back with regard to infrastructure and look at what's happened in the past. Our national economy is in desperate shape. There's not going to be federal money like there was in the past. Our local economies are in really bad shape. It's going to be hard to get money there too. The way we do this is to make the standards and create an environment wherein developers are willing to take the risk to come here. You know, and just to give you an example, a developer comes in here and he takes a look at the construction standards of our planning and zoning unified land use code book. When he looks at that and he looks at the cost to borrow money, you're in a situation here where any competent developer is going to take a look at some of these areas and say, we're just not coming. So there's a situation here in which, unless we do something to make it to where we have an environment conducive for people to come again, we're not going to have development take place. I think we need to look at, and I believe that we need to have specific written standards for roads and infrastructure if the county's going to take them over. But in terms of making development take place, I believe we need to have residential and commercial development take place with a set of standards that would allow development to come in, and then along the lines of Horseshoe Bend is a perfect example. All those homes came, the pavement came, and the 1931 school that was collapsing and rain was coming in the building, now School of the Osage has premier schools. We need to take and make this environment conducive to growth, conducive to inviting people in, so that they will invest in this community again. Because right now, it's looking pretty dismal.
Back to you, Mr. Hasty, with question number 9. Regarding planning and zoning, what needs to be done to bring unity of purpose?
Let's just talk about planning and zoning a bit. In a recent Lake Sun poll, there was 57% of the people in the Lake Sun poll said that planning and zoning needs a major overhaul. 30% said that they wanted to eliminate it entirely. I've got some specific notes on this, and I'm going to find them. Just want to make sure I don't overlook anything here. We have time. Well, okay. It looks like I'm not going to find that one either. I know it's here. Okay. We have a Lake Sun poll that shows these things. 9 out of 10 people in this county want something done about planning and zoning. And in 3.5 years of his administration, nothing has been done. What I'm seeing taking place in Camden County is, with these extremely stringent codes, one person goes before the Planning and Zoning Board and they get one thing, and then someone else gets something else. The environment for abuse is incredible in here, and I am seeing people treated differently in case after case after case. That's one of the main reasons that I'm running. I want a fair, level playing field for everyone. And I'm just going to give you just a couple of examples of that. Sugarloaf Winery, they endured incredible abuse at the hands of Camden County Planning and Zoning. And yet, when someone else comes in the door, actually a friend of mine, I'm not going to mention his name, he gets a variance signed off on by Mr. Franken unilaterally. And they don't have to pay any fee. The fact is, some people are paying fees and others aren't. I don't see a level playing field here at all. A code book pulled off the internet that doesn't work for this county needs to be fixed.
Thank you, Mr. Hasty. We'll go to you, Mr. Franklin, with the same question. Regarding planning and zoning, what needs to be done to bring a unity of purpose?
Well, there's no doubt that we do need to revise our code, and I said that when I ran the first time, and I'm going to say that again, and we have been working on it. We did revise Article 400. We did make it faster and easier and cheaper to get a building permit. We do have situations now where people can go ahead and record the retracement surveys of their decreated lots. We've done things that have streamlined that process in 400. There have been items in Article 800, which is the meat of our code, which is all of our zoning districts that need to be done. We're waiting for the Planning Commission to pick those up and move those forward. There's, with regards to the way our commissions and our boards work, they work within the structure under which the law that they were passed, and we do our very best to move forward. Most of the decisions are made by independently approved, non-compensated boards. With regard to the code, it's no secret that that code was put in our county from Franklin County in 2004. I think it's been said enough that most people that this is a concern for know that. And that's why we're working to try to make that better fit what we need here in the county through these revisions that I have tried to work through and tried to encourage people to take forward, move through the process. But what's interesting is how there's so much criticism, especially from a certain group of people in the county, about our code and the fact that it's from Franklin County, but yet, and not being critical of the city of Camden, but their planning and zoning code is an internationally adopted code. It's not even from the United States, much less the state of Missouri. And people sit on those boards for 5, 7, some people even 10 years without thinking that code needs to be revised at all. So what I would say regarding the code is that I am fully aware and fully agree that there are issues with that code, and we need to work to make it better reflect what we need to do here at the lake. But unfortunately, it can't happen in 1 month. The process is lengthy. It requires a lot of hearing. It requires a lot of input. It requires a lot of process. And I hope that if I'm elected, that people in this audience will move forward with me to try to continue to improve that code and make it work better for our community.
Thank you, Mr. Franken. Well, we will move on to our final question of the evening, and we'll go back to Mr. Franken. The county recently gave a blanket raise to all county employees. Should this have been done?
Well, yes, it should have been done, and I want to give a little bit of history on that. Back when we as a community, passed a sales tax in 2007, 2008, there were a lot of large raises that were made to bring key people into competitive salary compliance, is what I'll call it. Those adjustments were made without knowing what the true income on that sales tax was going to be. And that created an issue where that, coupled with a downturn in the economy, was devastating to the financial position of Camden County. We've had to work our way back through that. So from that time, there has been 0 raises, not even cost of living adjustments for the employees. And we've got a lot of people that are working still. I've got laborers on my construction crews that are building bridges that are making $9.10 an hour still today. And so when we get an opportunity to help them, we need to try to do that. And we had that opportunity. I'm not going to say that there aren't other things that we ought to consider, like some of the parity that we maybe need to create with different positions to entice people with good skills to come to more demanding positions in the county, or that we don't need to try to raise the base level of our deputy salaries, or that we don't need to try to refund some of those, a couple of the deputies' positions that were frozen during the downturn. These are all serious considerations, and these are all things that I know that I reflected on before bringing that forward to the commission for consideration. But we want to make sure that, I think it's our responsibility to do the best we can to provide the services, but also have the people that are providing those services to have a living wage. And I think anybody out there would probably agree that it's pretty hard to make it with a family on $10 an hour. And so, like I said, it was one of those situations. It was not lightly made, and it wasn't lightly taken. But based on the history and the big picture of what was going on, I thought it was the right decision at the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Franken. And we'll pose the same question to Mr. Hasty. The county recently gave a blanket raise to all county employees. Should this have been done?
I agree that it should have been done, and it's disappointing to me that the county employees are not making a lot more than they are. I see how hard they work, and yes, there's people out there making $9 and something an hour, and it breaks my heart. I've lived here all of my life, and I care about the citizens of this county. Absolutely, it should have been done. Should we do much more? Absolutely, we should. But in order for us to do that, we have to have the cash flow coming into the county. And to do that, we have to create an environment in this county conducive to growth. We have to create an environment that invites business in instead of doing everything that we can to block them so that they run off and they build their business in some other county. And that's happening, and it's happening now, and it's going to happen more in the future unless we do something to invite those businesses in. We need an expanding economy. If we don't create an expanding economy, we're left with one of two options: higher taxes or reduce services. We're there right now. Unless we start taking action right away to address these things as a county as a whole, in order to get income and have cash flow into the coffers, we have got to create an environment for growth.
Thank you, Mr. Hasty. We will now have our closing comments, and we will start with Mr. Hasty. Please proceed with your closing comments.
While qualifications are important, this election is about where our county is now and where we want to go in the future. The office of presiding commissioner needs to have the experience and knowledge to identify problems and take action to protect its citizens from the disasters we've experienced in the last few years. My opponent claims that Camden County is, quote unquote, in the best shape it's ever been in. Everyone in this room knows that that's just not the case. We've had banks taken over, businesses closed, roads in the worst shape that they've been in 20 years. Ask anyone in business on the west side of Osage Beach and they'll tell you we're not in the best shape we've ever been in. Matter of fact, ask anyone countywide if we're in the best shape we've ever been in. My opponent thinks that the well-being of this county is measured in the amount of money in the county coffers. He thinks that we're supposed to be working for him when he needs to be working for us. My vision for this county is to create a diversified economy so that our children can go off to school and come back home and find quality jobs. That way, grandparents are not separated from their grandchildren because their kids have to live and work in St. Louis, Kansas City, or Seattle. You know, that's the situation that we're in. To accomplish this goal, we need to fix our problems. We need to immediately identify the problems in the Camden County master plan, and they need to be fixed. We've got highway frontage in our master plan future use map that shows it being single-family residential. That's just ridiculous. We paid $150,000 for that, and it's virtually worthless. We need to hold the Lake of the Ozarks Council of Local Governments responsible to serve the best interests of our entire county instead of just a few people. We need, as an entire county, to stand up right now and go after MoDOT for what it did to the people on the west side of Osage Beach. Many of you know that I led the fight against FERC in 2006 with the IMZ issue. You also know that I led the fight again in 2011 and 2012 with this shoreline boundary issue. I have a proven record of being able to get things done. You deserve a commissioner who will work for your best interest. You deserve a leader with a proven track record, and you deserve leadership that you can trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hasty. We will now go to Mr. Franken for his closing remarks. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I know these things aren't, they don't compete well with Duck Dynasty or whatever your diversion on TV is. But you know the numbers don't lie, and it's difficult to draw a parity when you look at success. And the commission's job is to take the best care and get the best bang for the dollars that come into the commission, to the county for disbursement for your services. That's what our job is. So if we don't have extra money coming in, sure, we need to work to try to continue to bring businesses. But look at what we've done. We have a new Wood supermarket. We have a new Deerbergs complex with Dick's Sporting Goods and Bed Bath & Beyond. We've got a brand new hotel going up out at Oak Kinderhook. We're not stagnant. We're not where we want to be, but we're not stagnant. We're moving forward. Our tax base is getting larger, and we're doing more with the same amount of money that we had. That's good management. That's track record. That's what you should be looking at in this. You need to look at people that can build relationships. You talk about the overreach of government. Let me tell you a couple of DNR stories. I'm going to make them real quick. Number one, Stone Ridge Amphitheater, fighting with DNR for 6 months to try to get a construction permit for their wastewater facility out there. Within Shelley Hall, call Shelley Hall at Lake Ozark Environmental. Ask her about this. She called me, said, I'm having a problem with DNR, can you help me out? I had her construction permit 3 days later. That's because I have the respect of the people at DNR to know that I am going to take them to the mat if I need to, that I'm going to do what has to be done. We just got an operating permit for our Camelot sewer treatment plant that was going to be devastating to the operation of that plant. We came up with a plan to fix that, and in 3 days had a modification from DNR in writing saying that we have a year to implement that, and we're not going to have that issue anymore. That's what you need. You need somebody who really knows, who has proven that they can do it, and will continue to do it. You know how much easier it is when the finances are in line at home? Well, it's the same way at the county. When your finances are in line here at the county, we can start to move and we can start to do things. And I hope you'll be there with me. I hope you'll elect me to serve you for 4 more years. I need your vote on August 5th. I need you to allow me to continue to move the county forward, to continue to change planning and zoning code. Don't let this election be about planning and zoning. If that's the only thing you got, you're missing the big picture. It's not the only thing out there. There's 7 departments that the county oversees. I know what they all are. I know how they all work, and I know how to manage them. You need that guy. You don't need the guy that just wants to manage one. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Franken, and thank you, Mr. Hasty, for participating with us this evening. Thank you, Sam, for moderating the panel tonight. And on behalf of the Lake Sun and the Camden Chamber, we appreciate your participation tonight. In my short time here at the lake, I think it's important to note that our level of participation in voting has been somewhat disappointing. So I think it's critical that all of you vote on August 5th, no matter what your views are. And we at the Lake Sun definitely encourage you to do so and to ask your friends and neighbors to do so as well. So thank you for coming this evening. Enjoy the rest of your night.
For anyone that would like for me to answer any questions, I'll be around here this evening after this is over for as long as you want.
As will I.